What's up, everybody? Back in front of the whiteboard. I'm going to be short and sweet with this one. It's a very, very basic overview on a few key principles that I want everybody to understand. And it's going to be a bit about testing and a bit about airflow throughout the home. Again, there's so much to this. There are multiple sciences around air pressure and temperature differentials and even where exhaust and ventilation and circulation can happen in the home, where to place certain fans, how the HVAC system is, and just how air flows throughout a home. I'm going to do this from a mold inspection angle to stay within that niche and hopefully give you an understanding that this big breathing organism that is also a recycled air box that I call our homes are very important to see in this very basic picture. So I'll just get right to it. With different testing, the three main tests, go watch the video if you haven't seen yet about the three main different type of mold tests in a home, is going to be ERMI or dust collection samples, air samples, and swab samples. They all have their pros and cons, their upsides and their downsides, what they show and what they don't show. If we didn't do any testing and we just assessed the home, we would want that assessment to be top to bottom, all the way around every nook and cranny of the home, to really see how the current moisture levels are, how maybe previous water damage have impacted the home, and how the airflow and different ways the building is structured, the building envelope, around the house, things like that. We want to actually make sure that the grading, I did this maybe a bit wrong, the grading of the home is a bit more up and down like this to drain moisture away from the home. That's why gutters are going to be important, so the water that comes off and out. That is one of the many things to check on the external envelope of the home. So the goal is to control moisture. That's one thing we can control in homes, is moisture content. So moisture can come in, humidity can come in a lot of different ways. You want to make sure that you have, these are windows here and here. There are windows all throughout the home. You want to make sure that the windows and doors get opened and we introduce fresh air. If we have a very tight home, it causes that recycled air in the home to stay tighter and tighter, which causes more condensation, more carbon dioxide buildup, other contaminants. It's going to be a heavier concentration within the home. They say the best solution to pollution is dilution, and one way of really diluting effectively is letting fresh air cross ventilate into the home. Doors, like I said, windows, a lot of natural light in as well. Mold thrives in the dark, so let the sunlight in. These are some basic principles. Before I get to testing, I'm going to just incorporate a little bit of other understanding about different areas of the home. If you have a crawl space or basement, that is part of the building envelope. There is something called the stacking effect, which will cause air pressure and temperature differentials to move air from the bottom up. We're maybe never going to get a crawl space perfect, but we want it definitely as good as we can get it, because the air down there does influence the air up here, especially if you have gaps at all. If you have an HVAC system, which we'll talk about in a minute as well, that air will move upwards, and it's very important to make sure that the drainage is good down there, that there's a proper vapor barrier that covers the soil and dirt down here. Bunch of different factors on keeping a crawl space good, we've talked about in the past as well. First floor, you can do a lot of these inspections yourself, checking around sinks and toilets and showers and any other places where water damage could happen. Here we want to mitigate humidity and dust. Yep, so those are two things we can control in our first and second floor living spaces, much easier. So you want your humidity levels to be 40 to 50-ish%. If it gets over 50 into 55 or so, that's fine, but it shouldn't stay up in the upper 50s consistently. That's where the buildup of humidity in the home can cause the dust around the home to kind of convert microscopically into mold. Dust becomes its own little place to harbor mold throughout the home. And you're not going to keep your home completely dust-free 24/7 all the time. We shouldn't be scared of it, but dust buildup areas and places where circulation doesn't happen as well, or dust buildup does happen, you add dust and humidity, you have, again, another place where mold can build up. And guys, if you know about the ERMI test, you know that that's a dust collection sample. So the more dust you have in the home, that's what you're collecting. You're collecting innocent looking household dust, and then the lab tells you what's in that dust. So when you lower the dust content, you're in a sense lowering the potential for these species to be found in the ERMI, as long as you don't have other sources in the home. The toughest thing about the ERMI test is it does not point to a location. I wish that when we took dust from the first and second floor, or just the first floor, that there was some arrow from the ERMI saying, hey, it's coming from this room or that room. It's not. It talks about different species. Some need more water to grow. So some of the more toxigenic mold types need longer term water damage. That's why they're more commonly found where there's dark, damp, long-term water damage happening in certain places. And that's where I can help you with the assessment of the ERMI and looking at that. But just for an example here, if I take an ERMI, which is going to be represented by these little dots here, if I take an ERMI here and I collect dust over here, and I collect it over here and over here, all different places throughout my home, okay? I have an ERMI test. Well, it's a cumulative test of dust in multiple different surfaces, and that's what makes it one of the weak points, or that's what makes one of the weak points of the ERMI, is now we have to decide where, or determine where is the higher ERMI counts coming from. Are they coming from the water leak you had that came in through a window here? Was that adding to it? Because air is constantly moving, like I said. So is it the HVAC system that is heavily contaminated, and every time that's kicking on, it's distributing all that around, and that's what we're finding on the ERMI. The ERMI is this accumulative picture of where you might have one really big bad source in the home that's distributing throughout the house, or you might have 10 different problem areas in the home, and the ERMI is picking that up as well. So an ERMI by itself does not really show us that. I've seen low ERMIs, but I still tell people, hey, let's still cover the bases, let's still check the house, because the assessment of the home is most important. When I tell people to check the home and then their ERMI is low, but they find visible areas of water damage, or like visible mold behind wallpaper and stuff like that, the ERMI didn't show it. So this is where we can't just make our big determinations or have all of our peace of mind put on what our ERMI says. That's just one aspect. So if I'm assessing a home, I'm going to keep this very basic because there's a lot of nuance and intricacy to this. If I'm going to assess this home and I take an ERMI, there's one, okay? This is just a overall collection of what happens to be sitting on these surfaces in the dust. That's going to be my ERMI, okay? For an air sample, maybe in this bathroom, underneath this sink, there was an issue or a funky smell. We'll take an air sample underneath that sink, okay? It's a more localized spot. Maybe we see in the second floor, on a baseboard here, there is some visible water damage. We'll put an X for the swab, okay? So you start to put this whole strategy together. Any places you find visually, man, this is a black area that has definitely had water damage, you could put a direct swab on it, or you could just assign that, hey, that needs to be replaced anyway, and remediated properly. Air samples can be determinations of these localized spots. You can take an air sample in a handful of different places, but you got to know what those limitations are. What is the likelihood that mold is just floating into that air sample at the time that you're taking it? It could maybe be a lower likelihood, which is why there's a lot of false negatives at times. But that's why we just do the best we can with the options we have, and we put the pieces together. And like my last video, if you haven't seen that yet, determines is that the assessment of the entire home, knowing what to look for, knowing how a home works and breathes, and the history of the home is the most important part. I'm just including if you're getting testing done so that you guys know, oh wow, if I only did one air sample in the bathroom, look what it's not showing, a lot. If I just do one ERMI in the home, look what it's not gonna tell me, a lot. The most important part is knowing how your home is working. Does it have proper, see this is representing ventilation. Does it have ventilation in the attic properly? Does the bathroom have exhaust fans dumping the humidity out of the home entirely? Is the HVAC system in good shape because whatever's in that system is getting distributed throughout the entire house? Are we lowering humidity and dust content? A lot of different factors, right? Those are all things that tests can show us, but they can also miss. I wish there was a better test. Maybe the technology will get better and better as time goes on. I am hoping We have AI that tells us everything now. Let's have some sort of improved mold testing option that can really tell us a lot more about the home. But at the end of the day, the assessment from the trained eye, knowing how a building works, knowing a bit of the history of the home, knowing how we're feeling inside and out of the home, the smells, the senses, are really, really big parts to get a lot accomplished. I always encourage people to get as much out of this as you can accomplished without spending a ton of money and energy and putting only tunnel vision on what the test results say, which are one important aspect, but not the end all be all by themselves. So a testing strategy is a nice combination of all, but there are many times where maybe an assessor is good enough that he doesn't need to be taking any tests at all. There are times where that is actually recommended, and obviously this all works within people's budget and what their goals are, and the different areas of the home that really need to be checked, and vice versa. So the HVAC system is the final thing I'll talk about here. This is a motherboard, I like to call it, of what may be influencing the health of the home and the overall air quality a lot. Whatever is in this system, if it's dirty, 15, 20 years old, of old dust and contaminants, and every time that kicks on, it's going and it's landing on all the surfaces, your ERMI might be high because of a contaminated HVAC system. Maybe not every time, but that could be part of that buildup. Maybe it's old dust. The ERMI tells a historical picture, because dust is the picture of what has been in the air and then what settles on the surfaces. So that's a historical picture of old air quality that's landed on it. An air sample that you take is a current sample only. It does not tell history. It's only those 5 to 10 minutes that you're collecting air. And finally, swab samples are presence absence, tells the type and amount on that direct swab. But again, a good assessor should know what they're doing around the house, be very thorough in checking, not just set up a couple air samples and leave, not just take an ERMI and whatever that says goes, but really knowing how a home is working and giving very customized pictures of what is needing to be prioritized. Final thing I'll say about that word priority is we need to assess the priorities of the red flag versus the yellow flag spots. So maybe the red flag zones are the HVAC system, the crawl space, and the bathroom. Maybe these 3 spots are influencing the most amount of air quality and the most amount of surface area throughout the house, which may be why the ERMI is high, why the symptoms are being experienced, why what we really need to do to improve the health of the home. These are probably our red flag zones that need to be handled first to get us to our goal, which is, I really like the 80-20 rule personally. They say the best solution to pollution is dilution. If we can dilute your home to about 80%, that's within reason. That should take the burden off the body, and then we focus on healing the body. But it's about taking care of prioritizing what's actually impacting the health of the home the most. You might have, some grout that has a little bit of, speckled, areas. Maybe you have one baseboard that looks questionable, and maybe, some dust buildup throughout the house. These are not going to give us the biggest return on our investment for the effort, the money, the energy, and attention that we're going to give to improving the health of the home the most. This is where I like to help people in consulting, saying, based on everything we know and all the inspection steps and testing steps we've done, let's put the 3 to 5, some people have more, red flag zones down first, and let's get those done and really improve it without going totally overkill. And then maybe these are something that we can revisit in the future. Maybe we can improve and not assign some massive remediation protocol. It's going to cost a lot and really turn the home upside down. But these are things that we can just improve. And then finally, after you get those handled, it's all about the goal of maintaining and moving on. So how do we maintain humidity levels, dust levels, maybe air purifiers, and just keeping our routine checkups around the home to make sure things are good. And this covers a lot of different topics. I don't really know what to title this one because there's so much here about and a lot of different intricacies I could go into about different areas of the home, different ways in testing. But I do hope this is a good overview to give you an idea of this big breathing organism that you're living in called a home, with a lot of different aspects of it and different ways of assessing it. So if I can help any more, book a consultation with me one-on-one. check, binge my Instagram page with the videos and the story archives I've done. There's a lot of information there. And let me know any other additional questions. And if you have any specific questions on this video or this picture by itself, and I would love to answer those. Thanks.